You know, a lot of people ask me why I'm working today as a veteran. It's because it's not my day. I make a point of that. I get Veterans Day, but today is Memorial Day. It's their day. America's best. Some of those headstones, they lied about their age to storm the beaches of Normandy, marching to almost certain death. People who 5 minutes ago may have been a farmer were now crossing the Delaware on Christmas Eve to kill people that didn't want you and I to have our freedoms today. The one who might have been drafted out of his family business with a newborn baby at home, sent halfway around the world to a rice field just to be killed, whose body may never have even been recovered. Or my brothers killed right next to me in Iraq in 2007. This is their day. I took that picture after our ceremony in Baghdad, after we loaded their bodies onto a plane to go home to their families, their kids and loved ones. This is the first operation, actually, where I had people killed next to me. And I remember our convoy tearing into the Army compound as the medevac birds were landing because one guy still had faint vitals, another with a critical leg wound. We lifted them out first, and things kind of got slowed down, and a lot of us had some blood on us. Some of it's ours, some of it's theirs. I looked over at probably the toughest man I've ever met. He was kneeling down next to Jay Louis' body, one of his longtime close friends, and he was crying. Never thought I'd see that guy shed a tear in my life. That's the cost of freedom. That's what it is under each one of those white stones that I just showed you. Every one of those right there had a unit that watched them die, had a family member. Every one of them had a job before. Many had kids. They knew this could be the result of them signing up, but they did it anyway. And that's what makes America unique. Something that our SecDef pointed out today at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. Something that I think everyone in every corner of every political party, every government office, and every person who breathes fresh air today should really internalize.
You know, throughout time, civilizations have honored the powerful, the well-connected, and the well-born. Emperors and kings have built magnificent shrines to their own royal greatness. Yet in America, with our great experiment in self-government, it is fitting that the most honored and closely guarded tomb in the land is that of an anonymous soldier of an unknown rank. It's a uniquely American tradition that we honor anonymous sacrifice above worldly greatness.
That's what today's about. A lot of people have forgotten that, though. We as a country have become so divided. And I'm not talking about division in politics. I'm talking about people who believe in something bigger than themselves and people who don't. We as a country, we have had it so damn good for so long because of those people under those simple white markers. I don't think we as a society, not as individuals, but us as a whole society really appreciate sacrifice as much as we once did. We certainly don't collectively act like it. It makes me wonder if we could even win World War II again. I mean, sure, we have the technology, but do we have enough people with the character to win? Do we understand what the cost is for us to walk down the street and not worry about a rocket flying over our head, a missile aimed at our home, an invasion on our shores? Sure, many of us say, hey, thank you for your service or whatever. Most genuinely, they do appreciate it and they do mean it. But many people have never experienced anything like that. You know, Trump shared a story of an individual who was killed in his service during his speech today. So, you know, I felt it appropriate to share something that makes me lower my head today. I don't talk a lot about my service or about these things or, direct combat, but I feel like today's a pretty good day to share this. So I'm not actually sure I've ever said this publicly. But I just want to tell you what I think about on Memorial Day and why I would personally rather be here talking to you than drinking by a pool. It was June 28th, 2005. My SQT class, we were nearing the end of our final selection of SEAL training. We were told to come into this classroom early in San Diego. None of us had any idea what it was about. One of the instructors came in, I remember he closed the door, and turned around and said, guys, a helo just went down in Afghanistan. We don't have really any details right now, but we do know a lot of team guys were killed. We may need some of you to go to Afghanistan right now. Who's ready? And, every one of us raised our hands. The instructor nodded and walked out, but that's when it became real. That was Operation Red Wings. You might know better as Marcus Luttrell's Lone Survivor story. That's that trailer you see right there. It's personal to me. SEAL Team 10, Echo Platoon, had 5 team guys, along with a bunch of others, assigned to that unit, as well as the air crew and some other folks. Their helicopter was shot down going to rescue Marcus Luttrell. My class ended up not going. Instead, we just completed the training on schedule. But it was like really new meaning for what we were training for the rest of our tenure there. And at the end of the training, we were given our assignments, the teams, and what platoon we'd go to when we got there. And I remember the command master chief, read my name, Carl Higbie, SEAL Team 10, Echo Platoon. I mean, you want to know what it feels like to have 1,000 pounds on your shoulders? That was it. I was one of the 5 from my class sent to fill those positions. Not replace them, we couldn't do that, but fill those positions of those who were lost. I remember I checked into the team. I remember walking across the quarterdeck, and that's what they call the entryway to any place in the Navy. There was this huge mural on the wall painted of those men, Fontaine, Christensen, Lucas, McGreevy, and Taylor. I just remember staring. I have no idea how long I stayed there and stared at it, but I walked into my platoon space after that, and I met my new teammates. Almost all of these guys had just a few months ago watched their brothers get shot down in a helicopter. Nothing prepares you for that. I would only later realize what it felt in that moment. But over the next few days, I got to meet the families of those who died, and the wives and the parents. The whole platoon was on speed dial for them for anything they needed, anytime we were there. But something burned into my mind like it was yesterday. I remember one night about a year after we had gone out to a bar and we were all headed home. We often hung out with the fallen's family. And I was a new guy, so I was the DD. I had one of the wives of the fallen among 4 of us in the car. And I'm not going to say who, but we were playing the song Simple Man on the radio. And I had no idea, but it was one of her husband's favorite songs. And then she was just staring out the window. I'll never forget this look. She was looking at the Chesapeake Bay, and we're driving down the road in Virginia Beach, right on Chicks Beach, and she was crying. I turned down the radio, and I asked if she needed anything. I couldn't imagine what she was going through. All her and her children's tomorrows were destroyed. And they were destroyed so we could have ours. Her husband and the great men whose shoes I was sent to fill, they gave it all up to be a part of the machine that the rest of the world fears. Her husband's sacrifice is the reason we are the global currency, why we have a constitution, why Japan didn't invade after Pearl Harbor, why the entire continent of Europe doesn't speak German right now, why communism stays at bay, why our kids get to laugh and play rather than be ruled. Because people like me were afforded the privilege. It was a privilege, the greatest honor of my life, to stand on the shoulders of giants like those men painted on that wall, that mural on my quarterdeck. It was a privilege to stand on their shoulders, those who died, so many more. So, folks, as we fire up the grill today, I want you to honestly stop and think. I expect you to look at that flag a little bit differently today. I really do. Because while we all went on with our lives, that woman, her life, who was sitting there crying in my car, it didn't. It stood still, and it still does today. Her kids lost half their life on June 28th. They lost their dad. Her husband, parents lost a son. That's the reason for today. We sometimes, even me sometimes, we forget. We move on. But those families don't. They gave all their tomorrows so we can have our today. That's the reason for your 3-day weekend. So I sure as hell hope this sobers you up a little bit at that barbecue, by that pool, or whatever, because you should appreciate it. Maybe that beer tastes a little bit different. Maybe your kids, you give them an extra hug before bed. Maybe you stare an extra second at that waving flag in the breeze. Maybe it means a little bit more today. I know it does for me. And those who died giving us that, they'd want you to enjoy it. I say this every year. Don't feel bad. Don't say thank you or happy Memorial Day or whatever else. I know you mean it, but don't. You want to honor the people that gave you everything? You really mean it? If you truly appreciate the sacrifice of so many, be someone worth dying for. Rest in peace, brothers.
He loves the Constitution. He fights for what's right. He hates the bad guys. He's a freedom warrior. He's your freedom warrior. Watch Carl Higbie every weekday on Newsmax.